Young bucks like Drake Maye and Cam Skattebo continue to come through for fantasy managers, while guys like Saquon Barkley and Kenneth Walker continue to disappoint. We react to our Week 6 fantasy performances on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Today, we are going to discuss the best and worst Week 6 fantasy performances and whose stock is looking up as we enter Week 7 and whose stock is really, disappointing us as we enter Week 7. We'll get to all of that. Plus, at the end of the episode, hit on who you should pick up on the waiver wire this week. To start our stock up discussion, it has to be Drake Maye, second-year quarterback for the Patriots. Right now, he is the quarterback 6 in fantasy points per game, averaging over 20 points per game. 3 really great games this year with a couple more solid ones in there, but just scored 27 points yesterday. He is the quarterback 2 on the week behind only Patrick Mahomes, and he gets the Titans next week. So Drake Maye is looking like he's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, Drake Maye, I had him in a league, and finally I was struggling to get a win in this league, and I don't know why. The team on paper looked fantastic, and they finally came together. I mean, you had other guys that were struggling. Drake Maye has not been struggling. He's been consistent. We just haven't seen the big numbers where he can take over a game, and he's now doing it without running either. Like, we thought running was going to be a big part of what he does, but what I like about the Patriots offense, they've opened up the big plays downfield where he's throwing the ball deep, stretching the field. He's got a high YPA, so he doesn't need to throw the ball a ton to get you the numbers you're looking for. Josh McDaniels has done a great job giving the receivers. I mean, it's kind of a committee, different guy every week. This week was Demario Douglas making a big play early, Kayshon Boutte. Last week it was Stephon Diggs dominating the Bills. So, again, I like how their offense diversifies based on opponent week after week. And the matchups and the schedule is really good. That's why everyone expected a big, maybe breakout year for Maye and the Patriots. They get the Titans next, which now is a Mike Vrabel revenge game against a team that just fired his replacement, Brian Callahan. So that is a great matchup, we know, for Drake Maye. On the road, it doesn't matter. This Patriots team seems to be good wherever they go. They just won at Buffalo a couple weeks ago. I know Maye didn't put up a lot of numbers there, but I would expect him to light up Tennessee for sure.
Yeah. Now the rest of the offense is kind of a head scratcher because he does, spread the ball around a lot with the wide receivers. We'll get to that later. And then also the running backs, just they're killing each other. But Drake Maye is having a fantastic fantasy season. Now, Rico Dowdle, another 239-yard performance. This was after having 234 yards in week 5. And we're like, well, he's not going to go that crazy. He did. And he still scored a touchdown again. This time was receiving, but 183 yards on the ground at 56 yards through the air. And yeah, Chuba Hubbard has not been here the last 2 weeks, but he's been so efficient and so good. I don't know how Hubbard just gets his job back, right? Like, this team is thriving. They won both of their last 2 weeks with Rico Dowdle. I don't know how they move on from him.
Yeah, I mean, they've even hinted that it could be a Dowdle-led backfield with Hubbard being the more complimentary back. I would just be a little bit careful because really, a 3-game stretch, it doesn't get much better than this, and playing really bad defenses. Not just the Dolphins, not just the Cowboys. They get the Jets, who can't get out of their own way. Although the Jets rallied a little bit last week, and it's on the road. We know the Panthers with Bryce Young and this offense are not quite as good overall on the road, but he's bringing it. The Jets do struggle against the run in general. So it's a really good matchup. I just want to see what would happen. Like, I don't know if Hubbard is really playable at this point. You might be able to get something out of him in the flex, but that would mean the Panthers would have to dominate games where they could give guys enough touches here. So Dowdle is not only the hot hand, he's been the better back, and he's been more durable and explosive. I don't know how you could cool off. You're right. I mean, it's added up to 2 wins, and when things are adding up to wins, there's less wanting to change. So they're going to be reluctant there with Dave Canales to make this move. So again, I think you can feel good about Dowdle, but just be wary. Like, it's not going to happen every single week. It could happen one more week against the Jets, but then I think it gets a little tougher as we look at the schedule. So something to keep in mind. But this 3-week stretch is fantastic for these running game matchups for the Carolina Panthers.
Now, Cam Skattebo had a massive game, 30-point game. He had 21 touches in the game, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was a monster against the Eagles on Thursday night. He's the running back 11 on average this season, averaging more points than Ashton Jeanty. He's right there behind Jahmyr Gibbs, so he's thriving. It is a bit of a harder matchup against the Broncos next week, but with his workload, it's so great to see it too, because he got the workload even with Tyrone Creasy back. He was still on the field. Got all the workload. Now, the next man up with the Chargers was Kimani Vidal. He got pretty much all of the work. I mean, Haskins got in there a little bit, but he was a much more efficient back as well, averaging 6.9 yards per carry. Haskins struggled at just 2.3. But I mean, Vidal had a great game, 124 yards. He scored a receiving touchdown. He played on 67% of the touches. So it looks like Vidal's the guy to be playing in the Chargers backfield, and he gets the culture. It's a fine matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about possibly making a trade for Breece Hall or somebody in, and that's not totally out of the question. If the Chargers have some Super Bowl aspirations, I don't know if they can just say, Kimani Vidal's our guy. I mean, Najee Harris is not going to be back. We'll see about Omarion Hampton. But really, again, Vidal over Haskins, this was a tough question because we didn't know exactly. The reports had Haskins going one way, that Vidal. I thought they might do a split with the situational, but it seemed to be the reverse, where Haskins was getting a little bit work in the pass game, and then when it was time to score a touchdown, they threw to Vidal. And again, you're not sure if there was a goal line situation, how would it come out? I would think it might have been Haskins in that area, but we'll never know until we see them down near the goal line. We do get a matchup this week against the Colts, so I don't think they can just run as wild as they did against the Dolphins, who were terrible against the run. Look, the process was there. We like the Chargers running game to destroy this Dolphins defense. That's exactly what happened. We just didn't know exactly, for everyone speculating on who would be the starter. Look, half of us got it wrong, half of us got it right. That's fine. We move on. Now we have evidence what Jim Harbaugh has to do going forward without Hampton in there. So Vidal's still the guy, and trust it for now. I hope this doesn't turn into a weekly hot hand approach with Greg Roman. That would be very annoying.
Yeah, it would be, but I think it's Vidal for now, unless he were to get hurt, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But Devin Etienne and Jalen Waddle are thriving.
Yeah.
Etienne is the running back 5 right now in points per game, and he's just been incredibly consistent, especially with the receptions he's getting. And then Jalen Waddle, without Tyreek Hill, very involved the last 2 weeks. 9 targets, 8 targets, 110 yards and a touchdown in week 5, 6 receptions, 95 yards this past week. They do get a tough matchup in Cleveland next week, but I think you need to just keep rolling with them. Now, some wide receivers that just, stepped it up this week. Well, George Pickens has been stepping up all season long. He is the wide receiver 3 on the season. He scores 27 points this week with 168 yards and a touchdown, 11 targets. But yeah, I mean, maybe CeeDee Lamb is back next week, but he was getting targets prior to CeeDee Lamb getting hurt. He had 9 targets in weeks 2 and 3. So Pickens was a steal in drafts this year.
Yeah, and the difference between his previous stops with Aaron Rodgers there and not Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett, they were reluctant to throw the ball downfield, much like Aaron Rodgers was with Garrett Wilson. They were just reluctant to throw, and Dak Prescott is not that way. He's going to give Pickens a chance to make every play, especially when Lamb's not in there. Now, another receiver that's woken up the last couple weeks, Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence is not going yet. There's not much going on in this offense, but maybe without Brenton Strange, they had to really focus on getting Brian Thomas Jr. going because, again, other than that, it really drops off, right? You have Diami Brown and some of these other receivers that are kind of a makeshift for the Jaguars. So I think this development helped Brian Thomas Jr. I think it also helped Lad McConkey that Quentin Johnston was scratched. So sometimes things go back in people's favor based on how the depth chart or injuries work out. Now, Tetairoa McMillan, we said he was going to get in the end zone Wow, that was fantastic, right? To see it happen. The Cowboys allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers, so that's good news if you got Deebo Samuel and the rest of the Commanders this week. So again, Tedero McMillan, to have that game, now we feel totally immersed that he can have 100 and a touch in any given game.
Yeah, and now we would love him to put the receiving yards and the touchdowns together. He scores 2 touchdowns, but only 29 receiving yards in the game. We need those receiving yards he was getting the first 5 weeks with a touchdown or two. That would be perfect, but it was great to see him, utilized around the end zone. That's what we've been waiting for. And then lastly here for stock up, Travis Kelce. He's being heavily utilized in this offense. He's looking a little young and spry a little bit, still had some bad drops on Sunday Night Football, but he's definitely a guy that you can trust, plug in. We'll see what his usage looks like when Rashee Rice is back next week. We'll see if it drops. But for now, Travis Kelce, I mean, he's not his old self, but he's still a very viable tight end start each week. We are going to now transition to stock down players that, they're just not coming through, whether it be this past week or just all season long, and then hit on some injuries here. We'll get to that right after a quick break.
All right, this episode Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Mizzen and Maine. You know the saying, look good, feel good? The problem is most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there's Mizzen and Maine. Mizzen and Maine makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they perfected it ever since. I love that you can go from the office to dinner or even on the golf course and still feel comfortable all day wearing Mizzen and Maine. It's a feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. Right now, Mizzen and Maine is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmaine.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled Mizzen, and Maine, MAIN.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL20, all caps, for 20% off. If you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Maine stores in select states and take advantage of that nearby as well. This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was, well, it's not once, it's not twice, it's 3 times. It's Cam Skattebo. What a spark for the Giants with his backflips and all that good stuff. I mean, 34-17, just taking it to the Eagles. He just was a spark that the Giants have been missing there along with Jackson Dart. So good for him. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Michelle, time to continue the show and look at the downside of things. I'll quickly go over some injuries that are going to affect maybe availability this week, and it kind of stinks because the Bills and Ravens are off, so we don't need any more things to worry about. But yeah, Puka Nacua, it doesn't look good for him necessarily to go to London. An ankle injury he suffered against the Ravens. We'll talk about what that meant for the Rams offense. Marvin Harrison Jr. went down, but the Cardinals offense seemed to be fine without him and Marvin Harrison. Without him, I should say, Kyler Murray and James Conner in that game. Mecca Buka, look, they seem fine with throwing to different guys. So next man up for the Bucs. Garrett Wilson was a bummer in that matchup against Pat Surtain, too. He also injured his hip, and Calvin Ridley disappeared with his hamstring injury in what turned out to be the last game under coach Brian Callahan for Cam Ward. So those are the guys that we're worried about injury-wise. Now, I want to get into Stafford. We liked Matthew Stafford a lot against the Ravens, and he piecemealed some numbers in the end, but they didn't score 20 points, only 17 points. That's because the Ravens didn't show up. Him and Devontae Adams, we thought, okay, this is great. They're going to go off together as soon as Nacua left the game. That did not quite happen. Tyler Higbee got involved and scored a touchdown. Aaron Williams was involved. So I think Nacua is a big blow to both of these guys.
Yeah, I think it's a really big blow for Stafford, who had 2 really good games, weeks 4 and 5. He had 2 great games in weeks 4 and 5, and then all of a sudden he gets this great matchup against the Ravens, and he can only score 9 fantasy points, only has 101 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, and it's like he and Adams just could not connect. he gave Adams 9 targets in this game, 4 receptions, 39 yards. It's like Adams is having issues catching the ball this year across the middle. And then throughout the whole season, his catch percentage is at 47%, incredibly low. So it's not like he's been killing you in fantasy, especially because it's not like he was like the earliest draft pick. But this past week, he killed you with only 5.9 points when you thought he was going to have such a big week. And it's just, he's been overall very underwhelming in the Rams offense. So obviously without Puka there, his target should continue. It's just like, what will he do with the targets?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup against the Jaguars this week. They made a change at corner with the trade. And then, Travis Hunter, will that be the matchup with Nacua possibly out? They're not feeling optimistic. We'll find out if he goes to London. If he's not traveling, then we know he's for sure not playing this week in week 7 in that game at Wembley Stadium against Jacksonville's defense can be a little tricky. But again, let's hope the target and the volume, knowing that Nacua is not in the game, can help. It didn't really help. The Ravens didn't press the Rams at all in that game. Now, the Jets offense, look, negative passing yards in a game. It was brutal. Look, I think Aaron Glenn's trying to throw someone under the bus. That someone might be Justin Fields. Would he put Tyrod Taylor in there just to save face? Now you have Wilson hurt. I don't know what you say, but there's one saving grace. They're playing the Panthers at home this week, so maybe this matchup revs them up a little bit. But yeah, this Jets offense is just, I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe we need Tyrod because at least they had one really good offensive game with him starting.
Yeah, I mean, with Fields, it's so hard because he has 3 amazing fantasy games and then 2 just absolutely terrible ones. So I guess you're never going to know what really you're going to get from him. Maybe it's just you play him in the really good matchups because against the Steelers defense, when they're struggling to start the season, he went off. Against the Dolphins defense, he went off. Against the Cowboys defense, he went off in fantasy points. Fields did. And next week against the Panthers and next week after that against the Bengals. So I get it's scary. I get he has 2 like duds where he destroyed you, but I think you can keep playing him in those 2 games. Breece Hall has been disappointing on his production, on his volume, right? Like he's getting more playing time without Braylon Allen out there. He got 22 carries this past week, only 59 rushing yards, and didn't have a target. I mean, he's been getting targeted from Justin Fields and didn't even get a target in this game. So that was a massive disappointment. But to talk about another running back, that Saquon Barkley, right? He's going 101 this year in a lot of drafts, 102, 103 at worst, right? And he's a running back 15 right now on average, averaging just 13.3 points per game. He's averaging fewer points per game than Cam Skattebo, right? And this past week, only 7.7 points. So, I mean, the volume's just not there like it was last year. And like the efficiency is not there. He's not breaking off those super long runs. So with Barkley, I think you need to just realize what he is. And he's not that top end running back right now.
Yeah, and there's things that the Eagles offense has to sort out. I mean, they got the passing game going, go figure. And Saquon was kind of laid out as the casualty of that. Now you get the Vikings this week. It's going to defense that can give up yardage, but can force takeaways. So hopefully there's more help on the horizon. But that matchup against the Giants was fantastic. Revenge game, all that. It didn't work out. Well, we also didn't expect them to lose by 17 points and have a negative game script deep into the second half. So that was also not helpful. So I don't know, Barkley, again, this is the effects of that volume we talked about all the way through the Super Bowl last year, a massive workload. It was going to slow down. So maybe a little bit of rest somewhere will help him in the middle of the season get back going. But yeah, it's been tough to watch unless you get the receiving points or the touchdowns. It's been disappointing. Now, Kenneth Walker is another running back that, again, I don't know what's happened to the Seahawks. I feel like we've been rope-a-dope with the Seahawks and the Raiders, right? They said, we're going to be a run-heavy offense. Well, you can't always be run-heavy if you want to win games. And Sam Darnold, what is it? Basically the offense is, Sam Darnold, where's JSN? Where's JSN? I'm going to throw it to you as much as I can. And it was working, so why would they change it? They're 4-2. Look, Zach Charbonnet has been pilfering the touchdowns. Walker's not really being targeted, so I don't know what you do. Look, it is the Texans this week. The Texans are kind of a tricky, tough matchup. I'm not sure I feel 100% confident with Walker really going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, right? Zach Charbonnet's just taking too many snaps, and it's not like Charbonnet is doing good for fantasy either. But Walker only has one game that he's played with Charbonnet this year that he scored more than 11 fantasy points, and the other is 3.9, 9.1, 4.2. Like, it just has not been pretty, and he's playing 42% of snaps because Charbonnet's taking so many. So it's just hard to play him right now and trust him. Now with Travis Etienne, his stock is going down the last 2 weeks after a great start to the season through weeks 1 through 4. The last 2 weeks he has 7.3 points and 7.5. Maybe you say it's because of the matchups against the Chiefs and against the Seahawks, but definitely that production has started to slip a bit.
Yeah, the good news is the Rams showed a little bit of reality versus the run and let Derrick Henry, who we were really concerned about last week, do something. He still didn't get in the end zone, but also you look at the situation at the end again. This is where not catching passes hurts, right? Depending on the game script, like this is really frustrating. This was an opportunity, maybe if you, what did we talk about? This is just a bad game plan. The Seahawks struggle with backs who catch balls. Unfortunately, Etienne, despite doing this pretty much for a good chunk of his career at Clemson, they've refused to do this. So if he's not getting enough touches and they put Bashal Tutin in like scramble mode, then you're really out of it, right? The game script is a little bit dependent. Maybe it's also for Walker, right? They have to kind of be maybe behind a little bit or in an even game where I don't think they worry about running too much if they're ahead, and Etienne in the same game got too far behind where he wasn't used. So again, that's not good news, right? So you have to think Jaguars, Rams, it could go either way, right? They could have a lead, they could not. The Rams are pretty tough in general against running backs. So again, I think you play him based on the volume, but it's tough. Now, another guy that you're playing based on volume, but it stinks and it's grinding every week is Ashton Jeanty. Like, he needs the touchdowns. That's when he's been good. He did get a touchdown, thankfully, to save his day a little bit, but it would have been atrocious. He couldn't even get to 80 yards with 20 plus carries in that game. So I don't know. I think it's an offensive line issue. It's Chip Kelly's running system that's an issue. When is Pete Carroll going to make a change? That might help him at some point if him and Chip Kelly are not getting along. So let's watch for that. But they got to do right by Jeanty in the running game because Kelly's scheme just not getting it done for him.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty, if you played him this week, you're fine, 15.6 points. But with where you drafted him and he gets 25 touches against the Titans' terrible run defense, and he only scores 15.6 points with a touchdown, it's like that's just disappointing, right? I mean, you're fine with it, but it's just disappointing. Only one really big game this year. So yeah, he definitely has to do more moving forward. We're going to transition to our waiver wire discussion now and let you know who you should pick up and who you should leave on waivers right after a quick break. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their trade master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. Real people, real service. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is fully here. We are in the middle of it, the thick of it, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 of bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel offers me numerous ways to play. I can build parlays, try player props, and even put in wagers for the live lines during games. It always makes watching football even that much more exciting when you have just a little something on the line. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, let's hop into these waiver wire priorities. Now, if Kimani Vidal is still sitting out there, right? If your league mates all went for Hassan Haskins and left Vidal out there, he would obviously be the top waiver wire priority. But I mean, in most leagues, I feel like he was also picked up. So you just check for him. If he's out there, then he would be the top guy. Now, second top guy, though, might be Bam Knight for the Cardinals, who actually outsnapped Michael Carter in week 6, right? He out-touched him as well, or had more carries with 11 carries, and he got the touchdown. Well, Michael Carter, though, is still the more involved guy in the passing game. So I don't know. Like, Bam Knight's not going to have like high upside, but I do think he's a possible pickup and play if you're desperate for a guy.
Yeah, I mean, he might be the guy getting the cheapy touchdowns and all that. Mercado got hurt, and he was already hurt, like in another way, after the game in week 5. But now they get Green Bay coming to Arizona. It's not the most exciting matchup where you want to jump and play a Cardinals running back. I know the Packers are better against the pass and the run and all that, and a body's still a body. And a Bam Knight is the guy getting the goal line work, especially the Cardinals' depleted offense. I guess they're okay with Jacoby Brissett throwing to Michael Wilson and the rest of these guys. Apparently, that's an okay offense for them to run. They look so much better, weirdly, without Kyler Murray. It was just bizarre with Brissett. So if they're moving the ball and having a chance, that's okay. But the Colts defense has a lot of cracks, where I don't see that necessarily with the Packers. I think it will be a Green Bay feeling home game in Arizona this week. So I'm not feeling – I don't know. I'm not going to force Bam Knight, but if you're struggling, say you got Derrick Henry off or James Cook off, you need a 1 week replacement. That's where I would go with Bam.
Now we have a fun game against the Lions and the Buccaneers this upcoming week, but I mean, who will be the Tampa Bay's wide receivers, right? Like, will Mike Evans be back from the hamstring? Will Mika Ibuka miss time with his hamstring injury he suffered in week 6? Chris Godwin missed week 6 as well. Will he be back? And if those guys aren't back, someone else is going to step up because Baker knows how to hit. I mean, he just knows how to spread the ball around. So out of these 3, who would you rather pick up if those guys were to miss next week's game? Is it Cameron Johnson, who went 4 for 64 and a touchdown and yesterday, or Tez Johnson, the rookie who had that one long 45-yard touchdown, or Sterling Shepard, more of the guy that, maybe could be the veteran and fill in for that slot role? Who are you going with out of those 3?
Yeah, it's a tough. I mean, actually, K. Dotton was also involved. He didn't go off. He didn't have a touchdown. So that's somebody else you can look at if you're really hurting at tight end. There's a chance that Mike Evans might do some work this week and be on the track to return here. They get the Lions secondary, was obviously beat up against the Chiefs, as we saw on Sunday night. So any receivers worth the play here. I think the way it plays out is, okay, yeah, Sterling Shepard basically in the Chris Godwin role. We had basically Tez Johnson and in the role that we saw to Mecca Buka, the big play touchdown type role, right? So it's hard. I think you can take a shot on any of them. I think if Evans plays, then you take Tez Johnson out of the equation, right? Because then you need the slot and the other guy here. So when I look at it, I think I go with Cameron, the guy as I'm going with, over Sterling and Tez in this one, because I just think, again, I think he might get the most consistent targets if they're going to try to move the ball there. But yeah, what a mess. I mean, Ibuka was on fire. He gets hurt. Then you get all these receivers, and Baker Mayfield is not affected by anybody. Mike Evans out, Chris Godwin out, Jalen McMillan out, Ibuka out. Doesn't really matter. He just gets it done. So that's why we're even having this discussion about should we play a buck. And if Kendrick Bourne is still out in your league, folks, like, let's watch the injury of Ricky Pearsall, but he can't just go away in this offense. Like, he's playing the Brandon Ayuk big play role really well here for the 49ers. So just check if he's available. I'd rather go there against the Falcons than going in any of these directions.
Yeah, Trey Tucker is also another option. Next week, I have the Raiders can barely run even against the Titans. They're going to have to throw in this game. He's had some really solid games this year. So Trey Tucker's an option. What about Jalen Coker? He could return in week 7 for his season debut. He had a quad injury to make him miss these first 6 weeks. But he did return to practice before week 6. So if he comes back, I mean, he had a pretty solid end of the year last year for the Panthers in his rookie season. But that was before, they added Tedero McMillan. Would you consider adding Jalen Coker to your bench right now?
I mean, I'd think about it. It has to be a pretty deep bench, though, because, again, there are some other guys that they've worked in. Xavier Legette had a show up last week in this offense. I mean, the thing is, Coker was very good in preseason training camp, but he was healthy, and we've seen it in the past couple of years. So he will be a valuable target at some point, but I don't know. I think this is more of the McMillan Dowdle show for now, and I need to see a little bit more from the Panthers to trust a third option.
Now, two guys who had big games in week 6, but I'm just letting them stay on the waivers. It's Kayshon Boutte and Hollywood Brown. With Boutte, it's a different guy with the Patriots all the time, right? It's Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry, Boutte. Like, Boutte had a really nice week 1, didn't do much of anything until week 6 again. So I think that's just going to be too inconsistent to worry about picking him up. And then Hollywood Brown, he came down with those 2 touchdowns, still has not had more than 50 receiving yards in any of the last 5 games. And now Rashee Rice is coming back. So not chasing those 2 touchdowns. At tight end, though, Harold Fannin Jr., I think, should be picked up. 10 targets this last week. He's a rookie for the Browns. David Njoku is dealing with a knee injury. He had 7 receptions, 81 yards. He seems to be highly involved in this offense with Dylan Gabriel. So pick him up. And then Michael Mayer, if Brock Bowers continues to be out, he had a solid game in week 6 as well. He could be an option too.
Yeah, and Otten also, if you need him, and depending on the way the Bucs have structured, I mean, the Lions, look, gave up a nice game to Travis Kelce. So if you're really stuck, Otten could be an option there. But yeah, Mayer's basically a very solid replacement for Bowers in terms of what the Raiders want to do with him. And Fannin, I mean, this is the rookie movement in Cleveland. That's notable because, again, Dylan Gabriel, Isaiah Bond, Quinshon Judkins, they all get the Dolphins at home this week. So I don't know if it's going to get much better than that. If you can't play Browns against the Dolphins, then you can't play the Browns anytime.
Now, if you're in a need for a quarterback this week with Josh Allen going to be on bye, and Lamar Jackson is on bye, but was still going to be out anyways, who would you prefer to play this week? Because if there's one guy, if you're just picking up a quarterback because you're looking for the future, it'd be Jackson Dart, right? But he has to play at Denver this week. That's scary. Mm-hmm. But his rushing yards, over 50 rushing yards and a touchdown in 2 of 3 games, but 50 rushing yards in all 3. Jackson Dart's a great pickup. It's just not, I wouldn't feel confident playing him this week in Denver. But you have Aaron Rodgers at Cincinnati. He had a solid game in week 6. Or CJ Stroud against the Seahawks. Stroud just had a monster game against the Ravens before their bye. And the Seahawks have been allowing a decent amount of fantasy points to quarterbacks as of late. Even Trevor Lawrence just put up 19 points against them yesterday. So would you go Stroud or Aaron Rodgers for this week? Or would you just still go with Jackson Dart in Denver?
Yeah, it's so hard to not want to play Jackson Dart because I thought the matchups were very difficult early. I mean, and look, the one he was disappointed in was the Saints game. Go figure. Yeah, where we thought he was going to do a lot more damage. So I think the running gives him a high floor. I think you also look at Bryce Young against the Jets. The Jets have been shredded by quarterbacks. I know it did not happen for Bo Nix, but, I mean, the Jets are the Jets. And McMillan getting going, that's also making Young appeal. I think my worry about Rodgers is the Steelers' game plan just doesn't seem to be just chucking. What if the Bengals don't provide much resistance and this pass rush stays hot? Then you're not going to probably get the volume you're looking for with Aaron Rodgers. That's my only concern. CJ Stroud, you could definitely get the volume the way that Sam Darnold is playing. But then I could also see that being a bit of a disaster on the road. So I think, look, the problem is all these are on the road. So I think Dart is going to give you a bit of a floor here. I do kind of like Young as well, more so than Rodgers and Stroud. Now, if you're really crazy and you don't have Josh Allen / Lamar Jackson or a good replacement and you've been struggling with Allen on the bye, you can go Dylan Gabriel against the Dolphins. If you Spencer Rattler also has a really good matchup this week. So something to consider. And then you also have Joe Flacco, the other side of the Steelers matchup. I don't know if you can do that the way the Steelers pass rush is going right now. So, again, those are the faint of heart, but I would go more Dart, Young, and then I would go maybe Stroud, Rodgers in that order.
I like it. All right, that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We'll be back tomorrow to get into our positional rankings for week 7. That starts with quarterbacks and tight ends on tomorrow's show. So don't miss it. We'll talk to you then. Bye, y'all.